being able to do something that makes an impact to someone's life is really, really wonderful. When I look at how to make things sustainable, a lot of it is to do with sharing. We can do this stuff. Struggling societies, healthy societies, mutual aid is always there because it's that essential nature of humans looking after each other. I love the idea of having a social centre where people can work together so that nobody's burdened with, too much pressure, that we can actually get together and celebrate as well.
When we create these kind of more interconnected ways of support, it also takes away our reliance on these kind of systems that have this double edge of being an oppressor.
Yeah, how exciting. Oh, I get to interview you.
I think I'm very happy to talk about you today. What have been the experiences in your life that have contributed to the things that you do?
It's a really, really interesting question, and I think it's definitely a lot, and different things that contribute to us. Things change, things sort of come to the fore and recede. When I was little, I was very aware that my parents were migrants. So Dad's from Switzerland, Mum's from China. They met here in Hobart at the Migrant Resource Centre. And when I was little, I'd have people coming up to me and saying, "Where are you from?" And so I always felt like I didn't quite really belong here in a way. I felt weird because other families at school had cousins. They'd go hang out with their cousins on the weekends. And my cousins were overseas. So that was very formative. Being interested in art and music was very formative in the sense that it was for me because my dad yodels and plays the alpenhorn and our family sings in a choir, but I didn't really listen to music on the radio. So my upbringing was, in a sense, a bit weird. And Mum raised me to think you can do whatever you want in life. And I very quickly realised that you can't. A lot of what we can or can't do in life is determined by privilege and by a whole heap of other factors. So I wanted to be an artist when I was little, and I went to art school and didn't complete it. Fell in love with someone when I was very young and was under the impression that you kind of had to do things a certain way, got married and had children. I have always noticed that in Australia there are massive issues with class that nobody talks about. We know about racism, we know about sexism, but people who would hate to be considered racist or sexist are quite happy calling people bogans. And when you ask somebody, if you ask like 10 or 12 different people what a bogan is to them, they'll all come up with different answers because it's just a term that gets used to other people, to put people down. So I went to the high school that had the worst reputation in the state, and I had a really lovely time there. I think because I was so shy, I was kind of invisible, but I was able to get a lot of insight from the people who were around me who were amazing. And then getting older and realizing, oh my goodness, my body is a pile of rubbish. Genetically, I've inherited a whole heap of illnesses. I have rheumatoid arthritis, adenomyosis, polycystic ovary syndrome, mast cell activation syndrome, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, Raynaud syndrome. I've got a whole heap of other ones, and learning how to navigate the medical system has been a challenge for me. the older I get, and I'm 49 now, the more I realise that every aspect of our lives that is a challenge puts us in a certain position in life according to where everybody else is. And then the shit hit the fan with the housing crisis. And being a renter, my family experienced some pretty rough stuff. Now that I have the DSP, the Disability Support Pension, to look after my basic needs and social housing, I feel privileged and safe. And that's really interesting because I remember when I was young, nobody would brag about being in government housing or living on a pension. It was something that was really frowned upon. But I feel extremely lucky because I have security that many people around me don't. And I really wish that everybody did. I feel this huge weight of inequity in our world, and I think that's a big part of what forms who I am, what I care about now. I want everybody who struggles with health issues to be able to get the support and the care that they need. I want everybody to be able to afford to have housing that's safe and secure and affordable and healthy. There are so many aspects of life that are rough because people are just struggling to get by, and because the systems that are supposed to be looking after us are making us have to compete with one another. I find that really dreadful, and I'd rather see systems of living whereby we get to work together as communities and look after each other. And I think that's why I would really rather see more models of mutual aid than charity, because I see that charity creates hierarchies, and it perpetuates hierarchies. When we have charities, it's because governments are not functioning properly to look after people. People are falling through the gaps. So charities exist. They become industries. They become these whole industries. So they perpetuate the causes instead of dealing with the causes. Whereas mutual aid, I think, exists when you've got healthy societies, struggling societies, healthy societies. Mutual aid is always there because it's that essential nature of humans looking after each other. And I think that's what I want to see in this world. That's what I care about. All the bits of sort of struggle from my past in different ways, it all just gives me different elements of perspective in terms of what I think we could do better as a society to actually support people.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really, insightful. And there's so much that could be expanded on from that. You're kind of in direct opposition to some of those struggles and those systems.
It's kind of tricky because I feel like a lot of the stuff that I'm doing is kind of on the edge. Like one of the things that I have been doing in recent years is I'm on the Housing with Dignity reference group for City of Hobart. So that's a group of people with lived experience of houselessness and intense housing stress. But we're working with council, so that has limitations. Another housing thing that I'm doing or have been doing for a while is I've been involved with an organisation called Better Renting, which is a national organisation, and they exist to literally make renting better for all Australians. So they're calling for things like national standards for rental stuff across the board, all across Australia, which would make a big difference because things are gradually getting better, but not quickly enough. So they're being really targeted. I've been really enjoying being involved with them because they do lots of different kinds of things. They've done campaigns that are really targeted. Like one of the issues that renters face is homes being unhealthy. So they did these, well, they still are doing these awesome studies where they're giving a whole bunch of renters around Australia temperature trackers, which track the temperature and the humidity in a house over an entire summer or entire winter. And then that data, as well as the stories that are gathered from the renter researchers, informs a report that then goes to government. That kind of thing happened in New Zealand and was able to change policy. So, you know, hoping for things like that to happen here. So I loved being a renter researcher with that. I found a community of renters and we're able to sort of share our stories, and things like that also helped me to realise the value of community. Community is so important, especially when people are struggling. Short of a Sheet was founded by Danny back in, I think it was like 2018, 2019, as a result of the housing crisis, really. And it was really meant to be a pop-up. So she had conversations with somebody who had been experiencing primary homelessness in and around Hobart, I think, for 10 years. And he spoke about the difficulties that people had accessing services. So that was happening and still is happening because services are run by religious organisations. So, for example, someone who may have trauma associated with a religious organisation may not feel comfortable approaching them for assistance. There's hoop jumping. There's a lot of stuff to do with trauma that makes bigger organisations inaccessible for people who are stressed and vulnerable and traumatised. So Danny created Short of a Sheet. It's amazing. I'd been sort of supporting in any way that I could since the beginning. I think one of my bands played at the first fundraisers. And in more recent years, I've become more actively involved. Danny's not in Short of a Sheet anymore, but she, I still think of her as the spirit of Short of a Sheet. Her voice and the culture that she created, I think, is really wonderful. But since we've had some different people involved who have different resources available to them, we now have a headquarters, we have a van, and that enables us to do a lot more. So Short of a Sheet is technically a charity. We're incorporated. We have DGR status, which means that people can get tax deductions from donating money to us. But we try to keep things as grassroots as possible because our purpose is not to be like the other organisations, but different to them so that we are more accessible. So we provide our resources all for free. We don't need people to be filling out paperwork. We try and provide things in different kinds of ways. We have distributions where we go into community and sync up with services like Louis' Van. So people who are going to Louis' Van for food can come to us and get jacket, clothes, shoes. They can get brand new underwear and socks. That's really important for people who are sleeping rough. Toiletries, hats, gloves, beanies, scarves, all that kind of stuff, some tinned food. These items we find people really appreciate. We've also got lots of other ways that we help people. We have mini distro boxes, which we have in key places like I think it's called Tasmanian Aboriginal Health Service or something like that. People can go to those boxes and take what they need without having to talk to anybody. That helps with dignity. People need dignity. It's really, really important. One of the biggest things that Short of a Sheet does at the moment is assisting people who are transitioning into housing. So people may be, say for example, you may have a mum and 3 kids, they're escaping domestic violence, they've left their homes with just what they can carry on their backs. They may have been given transitional or social housing. The housing provider may be able to help with some aspects of fitting out the house, but the family may not feel safe moving in there until they've got, some things to really make it feel like a home. So we can provide white goods, furniture, homewares, and all of that stuff we get from the community for free. So it's like a circular kind of thing where a lot of our donors are people who are moving interstate, or someone who has unfortunately had a family member pass away and they've got a house full of stuff that they want to ethically deal with. They know that if they donate things to us, they're going to go to people in the community who need them, and it's going to be done in a dignified way. And that feels great, to be able to do things immediately, to be able to be truly responsive. If someone needs something, we can sometimes do it within hours. It depends on our personal capacity because we're a really, really small team, but being able to do something that makes an impact to someone's life is really, really wonderful. It's also incredibly frustrating doing this thing that is essentially like putting little band-aids on a wound that is growing, in the sense that housing in Australia, the leading cause of houselessness in Australia is simply a lack of affordable housing. This is by design. This is due to government policy. This is due to government failing. So it's impossible to do short of a sheet stuff without also trying to do some advocacy, because the causes have to be addressed. So that's why I support better renting as well as short of a sheet. But I'd really like to see situations where community can be more empowered to do things on our own. Short of a sheet happened just because one person had this idea and sat down at home in her share house with her housemates and just made it happen. We can do this stuff. It's amazing. Like, I think if communities are more empowered to be able to look after ourselves, we'll be much stronger and more resilient.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What do you think? It's so nice. I kind of, you say certain things that prompt, questions in my head, and then you just go and answer them without me needing to ask. It's fantastic. What do you kind of like point to when you think of, so obviously like we talk about, things like governments are failing and people aren't kind of working, in this way that is kind of like supportive of each other necessarily. Like what's the understanding that you use to approach that kind of like that culture and that failing to some extent?
It's really interesting because there are so many different failings. And like you say, they happen on a local level, a national level, an international level. But the thing I think that's universal about it all is 2 things, and I'd say they're neocapitalism and colonialism. I think those 2 things together, and they are very intertwined, and I'm no expert in either of them, but this is, I think, what's causing a lot of the trouble here. It's greed. It's people feeling superior to other people. It's people having to feel like they need to compete rather than live together and work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we could do without billionaires.
Yeah.
I think, a lot of this sort of stuff is seen as radical, but I really don't think it's radical at all, because I think they're just truths that are staring us in the face. I think anybody who looks into this stuff, I think if they're getting decent information, will see that the systems that we have are not sustainable, and it doesn't make sense to have systems that aren't sustainable. Ecologically, we're facing um, the collapse of mankind if we don't actually address climate change. What's causing climate change? It's our behaviors in terms of how we're sucking the life out of the planet, not just with like resources from the earth, but human resources. Like, even that terminology is kind of grotesque. But when we look at what's happening in Congo and other places, and I only have like this tiny understanding of it, it's an absolute shit show, and it's just from greed, and it's disgusting. Sorry, I really don't know how to talk about that kind of stuff. I just, because I don't understand it very much, and I find it so upsetting. But I also feel like it's like, I think we kind of have an obligation to kind of learn a little bit better, because I think we all have the capacity to understand things to a certain degree. And if we want to actually do something good, it makes sense to try and learn and find out what can we actually do that will have an impact. Because there are lots of things that we can do that would make us feel good, but what's the point of that if it's not actually doing the right stuff? Like, there's so much, I don't know. Our time in this earth is sort of limited, and we want to do stuff that actually makes a difference to real people and to the planet.
Yeah, which speaks obviously really well to what you were saying earlier about, charities and NGOs that kind of, in this way really perpetuate, the things that they kind of attempt to, or maybe not even in some instances, but kind of claim to be tackling, in this way that isn't, that might be more leaning in this way, that's kind of this, what makes people feel good without actually, addressing, the fundamentals, or the roots of kind of, what they're really in opposition to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would never mean to criticize people who work for charities, because my goodness, I'm continually seeing people who are doing such amazing things and who care so very much. But when you have systems that that exist as part of hierarchies, they will always maintain these hierarchies, and no matter how caring and how loving and generous somebody is within that, they will only be able to do whatever their role is. I guess that's where activism comes in.
And what ways does that represent itself in your life at the moment, to be,
I love mischief, but I'm a very good girl. Look, I have friends who do amazing things, and I see the work that they're doing, and I'm in such admiration. I have a little choir that I sing in with my mum and dad, and there are choir members who have done like tree sits, and can just continue to do amazing stuff with the Bob Brown Foundation and other groups. And I feel like that kind of pressure needs to be consistent, and other kinds of pressure, like with everything else, basically, it's like this sort of uphill battle continuously, where if we as individuals and community do not continually show what matters to us and what we care about, then the big lobby groups and big business and whoever else will just do whatever they want, because they have the power. They'll be able to get away with that. So organisations like Better Renting have to keep the pressure on in order to for anything fair to happen. We've just seen these massive cuts, well, reforms to the NDIS, which are making it much less fit for purpose, which is frustrating. Ableism within systems that are supposed to be there for people who are at risk. It's infuriating. So we have all these people who are vocal, who are speaking out, who are doing advocacy, and that has to continue. And I admire that so much. There's also this role for direct action because we see that it makes a difference. When I see that, like the stuff that people at the Wilderness Society are doing, even just the very kind of gentle stuff, like going into those places where logging is going to happen and identifying the big trees so that sections are protected. That, to me, that's activism, and that has a massive positive impact. And that there are people going out there doing that every weekend, that's like hero stuff to me. From where I come from, because I have this body that only lets me do limited stuff, and this is like true for all of us, we're all kind of limited in one way or another. It just makes so much sense to be supporting other people who are doing work that we can't. The other thing that's really difficult is because there are all these amazing people out there doing amazing things and caring so very much, that people are facing burnout and despair and all these traumas from dealing with all this sort of heavy stuff on our shoulders. And often because the people who are doing the work are the people who are directly impacted. So it's left to the disabled people to fight for disability rights. It's the people who are unhoused are expected to be a voice of lived experience, and they're struggling to deal with the daily life. So we have all these people who are doing this great work, and it's hard. It's hard work. We need to have structures that look after people better so that we can do things as a community, so that different organisations who are doing good things can work together, so that we can share resources and we can communicate about different things. I guess Grant is really wonderful for that. If we had a social centre, we would be able to just do workshops on stuff like this. It would be so great. A lot of the frustration I feel is that even in short of a sheet, I find myself doing the same tasks again and again. And when I look at how to make things sustainable, a lot of it is to do with sharing. We recently had a professional, I've forgotten the word, consultant who did a report on short of a sheet and looked at things that are challenging for us and things that we could do better. And she's written this amazing report about what we can do better.
Oh.
And it's amazing. And a lot of it is to do with sustainability, not burning out, being, how to use our resources, how to share information. Basic things like how to use technology to share information so that if somebody gets sick or whatever and is not there, the organisation will be able to keep going because the information is not held in someone's head. It's written down somewhere. It's exactly the same with any other kind of thing. If we share leadership, we share experience, we share learning. I love the idea of having a social centre where people can work together to build care and to do things in a sustainable way, so that nobody's burdened with too much pressure, that we can actually get together and celebrate as well. And like when I look at like our LAMA fundraiser, when we had that one day, so many people contributed beautiful artworks, and it wasn't like an art auction where the art was super expensive, because it was all going at relatively sort of affordable prices for people who were there, but it was stuff that was donated with heart and purchased with love. And that made a lot of money. Like, that's just kind of mind-blowing, but it takes energy. And you know, we keep having this thing whereby we'd be like, imagine if we had a social centre, like actually doing this stuff would be so much easier. Like, we're all storing stuff in our spare rooms and in our hallways and in our garages, and if we had a place to keep everything, it'd be so good.
And a place to, I suppose, like it's also a social, I mean, it's in the name, but it's a social place. It's a place where, yeah, people can, yeah, kind of like support, yeah, I think support each other, you know, as opposed to kind of being someone's house, being, you know, the one-stop shop for like all of this specific gear, or, you know, there's ways that in doing that and in having kind of that shared space, I think it's gonna, it really has the potential to bring about a lot more care for each other, because if you don't, yeah, I guess you don't know what everyone else is up to necessarily if you're not kind of as exposed, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I really liked going to the gig last night and seeing you and a bunch of other people from LAMA there, and like we're all there to see Benji's band. It was like, yay!
Yeah.
And I was thinking, how good would it be to like have a centre where we can have gigs like that? You know, knowing how much effort it was for Benji to put that together. And like, I'm arranging a gig at the moment, and it's a lot of work. It's really hard to make things happen, and we want to make things happen that are not only mutual aid and activist based, but like community building, having gigs, eating, like just joyful things. Stuff like that's fun. It's so important.
Yeah, and those are the things that, you know, when, yeah, when you kind of put emphasis on those spaces and on that kind of that way of being, it is also, yeah, when we create these kind of more interconnected ways of support, it also takes away our reliance on these kind of systems that we were talking about earlier, that also have this kind of double edge of being an oppressor as well as not savior, but you know, yeah, this kind of life support sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, before we got started, you talked about your love of the northern suburbs.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to ask you about that, because also I think, well, at least when we discuss the potentials of LAMA and having a space like that, it's often falls within, you know, the context of place as well, and place, you know, the accessibility of what a space like this would kind of need to have, or what it should have in order to be, to really kind of fulfill its purpose. And so that discussion has kind of led us to ideas of, yeah, having LAMA in the northern suburbs, or you know, having it kind of, yeah, not at least definitely not kind of like in the CBD, or in this place that is maybe not necessarily accessible to all that many people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting because, like, I think of the CBD as being like the centre of Hobart. And you've got the southern suburbs and you've got the northern suburbs. But a lot of people say, oh, you know, Newtown's so central because it's between everything. I think there is, and it probably is partially because of affordability and also industry and work. There's a lot of stuff happening in the north. I love the northern suburbs because it feels like home. I have a sense of history here, I guess, because the Chinese side of my family, weirdly, have existed here in the northern suburbs of Hobart for like 9 generations, like way, 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 way back. And because of the White Australia policy, they would go back to China or Hong Kong to find a wife, the men would. And so, yeah, my mother was born in China, but she had family living here. She was only able to come out when she was 15. A lot of the homes in the northern suburbs were literally built by Eastern Europeans who came over and built their houses before the government had even built roads. So a lot of Springfield was built by these migrant communities. And I remember when I was in high school, we had there'd be different friend groups, and I only realized as an adult, thinking about one of the friend groups, it was all the Eastern European families. There was a lot. And now we have lots of different communities here from different places, and the Migrant Resource Centre is here in Glenorchy. It's a beautiful, vibrant place, and I hear people saying things like, Moona's cool now because you can get a decent coffee. And I think that's so interesting, because to me Moona has always been cool, because it's been a place where you could, if you need to get a particular kind of screw, you could go to the place and get it, and it was right there. All services are close by, and Ziggy's was doing amazing stuff. Just the cultural stuff that happens around the northern suburbs is so diverse, and it's so interesting. I really, really love it. So I have a bit of a soft spot for this area. And also because I think if I had lived in a different place, if I had gone to maybe a single-gendered school or a private school, I just imagine I would have been a terrible person, maybe. I just feel like I've gained so much from this community. It's a beautiful community. I really, really love it here. And we've got the mountain and the river, and there are swans 100 meters over there. Black swans. That's mad. And sometimes ducks walk up the street.
It's pretty beautiful.
Yeah. And yet I have friends who say that they don't really come here because they're scared. Why should we be scared of people? That's the sort of thing that we can do stuff about. If people are scared of people, then we're doing something a bit weird. When I think about the stadium debate, there's been this massive division between no stadium people and yes stadium people. And I think this kind of stuff plays out pretty severely in areas like here in the northern suburbs, because people need hope. And what the government is presenting is bread and circuses, basic, keeping people occupied with silly business so that they can just continue doing whatever they're doing while people are struggling to get their basic needs met. Here we have such inequity, we have such class inequity. It breaks my heart when I see a home for sale here and it's purchased by someone who would really rather live in West Hobart or South Hobart, but they can't afford to purchase out there. So they're buying here. You can see they're not quite comfortable because the first thing they do is put up a big fence. And it's so sad because this community is so nurturing. This community is so kind. In this street, my neighbour comes over with croissants. If I have some extra stuff, I walk it over to. It's just normal. We don't need to have these big sort of barriers to feel safe. I think we can feel safe in community by feeling connected. The Goodwood Community Centre is an amazing place because the staff there are very responsive to what the community's asking for. And I think the LAMA Social Centre has the potential to do that kind of thing, also to create a place where community can come together and express what we need, what we're struggling with, what we want to work on, how we can help working on these things together, without it being a thing of haves and have-nots, but just community working together to do nice things, good things, eating together and growing food and sharing information and sharing resources. I think it's really ironic that Short of a Sheet gets a lot of donations from people who are struggling because they're overwhelmed with physical objects. And I can relate to this. At the moment, I've got clothes that I need to move on, and I want to do so in an ethical way. When we're trying our best to do things in the best way, it can be, we can get like paralysis of perfectionism. But the more we communicate, I think, in community and watch what other people are doing and learn from other people, the more we can work out what actually makes sense. I really like the thought of being able to have more connection in community so that we can all learn from each other more. I just feel like I'm just continually learning from community, and I just want to do that forever.
Me too.
I think this area has a lot to give and a lot to gain.
And you said earlier, like, you hear people say, oh, you know, Moona's cool now because I can get a good coffee. Yeah, and something that I think about maybe in relation to LAMA and doing things in the northern suburbs is also kind of, you know, being aware of gentrification and being aware of, you know, this idea that you also don't want to be bringing people kind of to places in this way that is kind of not without that relation and without that connection, and that is kind of just, yeah, not exploitative, but maybe exploitative.
That's really important stuff to talk about. Like I did a thing for Arts Tasmania last week, and it was about how we can make the arts more accessible for artists with disability. And it was really cool listening to what all the other presenters were saying, because we were all saying the same thing but in different ways. And one of the common points was building relationships. So the difference between something being tokenistic and something being justice-based is that the relationships, if we continue to listen, if we continue to learn, if we actually are genuinely caring, you know, building relationships over time so that there is interconnectionness in like people being able to contribute, people being able to have ownership. All of that sort of stuff is really important in changing culture. Yeah, and ensuring culture that is inclusive and accessible and kind and caring, and yeah. So there's like all sorts of voices in the community who are important. It's nice. It's nice to think that, you know, we could potentially be part of something that makes a nice thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We have this potential which is so incredible, but also I think that a lot of us, you know, we also have a responsibility to the people around us.
And my goodness, what an honour to be part of nice things. What a privilege to be part of nice things. And what an opportunity that with LAMA, because like I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to make the social centre happen. You know, people can get involved now and say that, you know, they were involved from the early days. That's pretty cool. Who wouldn't want to be doing that?